Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're taking a really profound, deep dive into the absolute core of human existence. We are going to explore the brilliant minds of two philosophical giants of the 20th century, Paul Tillich and Rudolf Otto. We'll be breaking down the concepts of existential anxiety, the awe-inspiring nature of the unknown, and ultimately, how we find the courage to actually exist in the face of it all. All right, let's just dive right in.
I want you to ask yourself a question. What is it that you care about with absolute, unconditional seriousness? Like, what would you truly be ready to suffer or literally even die for? Now, for some people, it might be a traditional religious faith. But for others, it could be a political ideal, like democracy, an artistic pursuit, or maybe a scientific truth. You see, this isn't just some fun hypothetical thought experiment. This question cuts straight to the absolute foundation of our psychology and our internal drive. And as we're going to see today, answering this question is exactly how we start to confront the overwhelming weight of human anxiety.
Paul Tillich makes this absolutely brilliant distinction between fear and anxiety. We tend to use these two words interchangeably, right? But they are fundamentally different. Fear has a definite object. You can be afraid of catching a sickness, facing a rejection, or losing your job. Fear is when a bear is chasing you in the woods. You can run or you can fight. Because it's an object, you can analyze it and attack it. But anxiety? Anxiety is completely objectless. It is the existential awareness of non-being. It's the awareness of our own finitude, the unavoidable fact that we will one day end. Anxiety is like that feeling that you forgot to lock your front door, except the door is the concept of existence itself. You can't fight nothingness. And that's exactly why we feel so utterly helpless in a state of pure anxiety. There's no object to concentrate on. It's just the ever-present shadow of our own mortality.
So how has humanity historically dealt with this profound unknown and the dread of non-being? Let's get into Section 1, Experiencing the Numinous, Encountering the Holy.
To really wrap our heads around this, we have to look at Rudolf Otto's seminal work, The Idea of the Holy. Otto basically argued that we make a massive mistake when we only look at the rational attributes of religion, things like reason, purpose, and goodwill. He pointed out that religion inherently involves something non-rational. It's a raw experience that completely eludes pure conceptual thought. Otto actually coined a specific word for this inexpressible core, the numinous. It is a completely unique, irreducible mental state. When we encounter the numinous, Otto says we experience what he calls creature feeling. It's this profound emotion where a creature feels absolutely abased, completely humbled, and reduced to literal dust and ashes in contrast to something supreme. It's not just a feeling of dependence, it is a profound, spine-chilling awareness of a presence that is entirely outside the self.
This perfectly captures what Otto calls the mysterium tremendum, the tremendous mystery. And it isn't just simple fear. It actually breaks down into three distinct elements. First, you have awfulness, which is this uncanny, eerie, almost demonic dread that served as the starting point for early religion. Second is overpoweringness, or absolute majesty, which is what triggers that feeling of deep humility we just talked about. And third, energy, an intense urgency, vitality, and passion. Think of the symbol of a living, highly dynamic God. It's a complex, totally overwhelming emotional response.
The absolute key here is that the object of this awe is inherently wholly other. It falls completely outside the limits of what is familiar or intelligible to us humans. In fact, Otto warns that when we try to completely rationalize these spirits or divine concepts, when we try to build massive structures of theory to explain them away, we actually weaken and deaden the raw numinous experience itself. Now, Tillich takes this foundational feeling and executes a total paradigm shift. Which brings us to Section 2, Your Ultimate Concern, Redefining Religion. You see, Tillich essentially distinguishes between two concepts. First, there's religion in the narrow sense. This is what you'd find in a dictionary: going to a temple, organized groups, dogmas, the clergy. But then there is religion in the broad sense, and Tillich defines this as the state of being grasped by an ultimate concern. Under this broader definition, the secular world can absolutely express ultimate concern too. Nationalism, socialism, the scientific method, or the pursuit of art can all be your ultimate concern, your religion, if you treat them with unconditional seriousness. Yes, this literally means treating your favorite sports team with unquestionable, life-or-death devotion technically functions as your religion.
Now pay close attention to the word grasped here. Tillich is super clear that we do not sit down and use our free will to actively choose our ultimate concern. It isn't some voluntary process where you wake up and say, okay, tomorrow I'm going to care about this. Instead, it comes to you. It takes hold of you. Just like a true scientist can't simply abandon the scientific attitude because it's deeply embedded in who they are, our ultimate concerns grasp us, entirely shaping our reality. But of course, this comes with some pretty massive risks. Whether your ultimate concern is traditional or secular, it faces two massive threats. On one hand, we have secularization, sometimes called profanization, where life becomes entirely empty, materialistic, and devoid of any ultimate meaning whatsoever. And on the other extreme, there is demonization, or idolatry. This happens when we take something finite, like a specific symbol, a political ideology, or a human institution, and we falsely elevate it, treating it as if it is the absolute, infinite ultimate. Both of these extremes tragically disconnect us from the true ground of our being.
So, if we're constantly caught between the dread of non-being, the overwhelming awe of the holy other, and the dangers of losing our ultimate concern, how do we actually survive? We arrive at Section 3, the courage to be, affirming life. Let's look at how historical thinkers found the strength to affirm life in spite of the abyss.
It's fascinating because the concept of courage has evolved dramatically over time. For Plato and Thomas Aquinas, courage was super closely tied to the armed aristocracy, like the fortitude of a soldier ready to sacrifice their life for what is noble. Later on, the Stoics transformed this into a democratic, universal concept, the courage of wisdom, where a person basically surrenders to universal reason to conquer the anxieties of fate and death. But as we move into the modern era, thinkers like Spinoza and Nietzsche completely shift the paradigm from resignation to a dynamic self-affirmation. Spinoza argued for this concept called conatus. He believed that the endeavor of everything to persist in its own being is its actual essence. It's not just a secondary trait. It makes a thing exactly what it is. Therefore, true courage isn't just a moral virtue, it's an ontological act. It's an act of existence itself. Courage is the act of affirming your own essential being. It's your inner power pushing back against all the things that threaten to reduce or destroy you.
Then we get to Nietzsche, and he has this incredibly dynamic layer with his will to power. For Nietzsche, a truly courageous life doesn't just seek submissive safety or mere self-preservation. The will to power is the self-affirmation of life as life. It wills itself to grow, to command itself, and most importantly, to risk itself in order to surpass its own limits. It fully accepts that life is painful and ambiguous, but it courageously affirms itself in spite of that negativity, totally rejecting the cowardice of running away from life's hardships.
Nietzsche gives us this absolutely striking image. He who with eagle's talons graspeth the abyss, he hath courage. It's such a powerful metaphor, and it perfectly encapsulates the existential courage we've been talking about today. It is the courage to stare directly into the terrifying, objectless abyss of non-being, to recognize the profound mystery of the universe and yet, with absolute pride and strength, to actively affirm your own existence. We've covered a lot today. We've traced the architecture of anxiety, the non-rational awe of the numinous, and the mechanics of ultimate concern. We've seen that courage isn't just about fighting physical battles, it is the profound, daily act of affirming your own essential being, in spite of the dread of nothingness. So as you step back into your daily routine, I want you to ask yourself, how will you practice your own courage to be? What finite idols do you need to finally let go of? And what will you allow to truly grasp you?